Photographs of Washington, D.C. National Geographic, June 1923. From the Capitol to the Memorial. By consulting the map of the mall, the reader can identify in this picture practically all of the principal public buildings in the heart of Washington. The airplane conceals all of the Washington Monument except the very tip. A parade on Pennsylvania Avenue. It is along this thoroughfare that the presidential inaugural parade passes from the Capitol to the White House, and over the historic route have marched the victorious armies of the Republic, as well as many other imposing processions. Much of the land on the south side of the avenue is to be occupied by public buildings eventually. The towered structure is the home of the Post Office Department. The Capitol on a rainy night. Modern invention has contributed to aesthetic beauty in a way that the Capitol's builders little dreamed. Floodlights playing from the roofs of the wings and from the grounds east, a diffused radiance about the dome which never seems more majestic than when it stands out against a dark sky. The light in the circular balcony aloft betokens a night session of Congress. Sightseers climbing America's most historic portico. Here, presidents take the oath of office. The steps form a theater for the summer concerts of the U.S. Marine Band. In the doorway are the beautiful Rogers bronze doors, which weigh 20,000 pounds. The inauguration of President Harding. No scene in American life is more impressive than the inauguration of a President of the United States. From every nation of the earth and every state in the Union come those who witness the assumption of the delegated power of more than 100 million people by one who, in international affairs, is to be their voice, and, in domestic matters, their chief magistrate. A voice-amplifying device enabled more than 125,000 persons to hear President Harding's inaugural address. On the steps of the Capitol, listening to the Marine Band concert. To Italy we owe some of the finest artwork in the Capitol, and from Italy came the nucleus of the famous Marine Band, whose concerts here and at the White House are among the many summer delights of Washington. In the statue of Columbus, upper right, it is said the artist faithfully reproduced a suit which is pointed out at Genoa as one which the discoverer wore. One of the clocks in the Capitol. This clock, with its surmounting figure, emblematic of the flight of time, is regarded as one of the finest artworks in the Capitol. The genius of history stands in a winged chariot representing progress, and a wheel of the chariot forms the clock dial. It takes much of two men's time to wind and regulate nearly 300 clocks in the Capitol group of buildings, in addition to which there are many electrically controlled timepieces. A group of sightseers testing the peculiar acoustic properties of the Whispering Gallery in the Capitol. The man standing at the left of the picture is a guide who is whispering. As long as he stands on that particular flagstone, his whisper is audible to the group of people at the right. If he moves his position a few inches, he cannot be heard. Each state in the Union has the privilege of placing statues of two of its distinguished citizens in this Hall of Fame. The President addressing a joint session of Congress. Sitting beneath the clock behind the President, who is standing, are the Vice President at the left and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Frederick H. Gillett. In these latter times, when the House and Senate have such stringent rules against the use of their respective chambers for any other than congressional purposes, it is interesting to recall that in Jefferson's day, the former chamber of the House, now Statuary Hall, was used on Sunday as a place of worship. When Thomas Brackett Reed became Speaker of the House, he was shocked to find one end of the Capitol cluttered with small shops, souvenir stores, and peddlers. He promptly drove them out. Vice President Coolidge in the Senate pages on the steps of the Capitol. Many a boy has come to Washington as a page in the Senate or House and later in life returned as a senator or representative. Mr. Coolidge and his predecessor, Mr. Marshall, have been the especial friends of these virile youngsters. President Harding placing an emblem of the states on the casket of America's unknown soldier. This unnamed hero, brought home from France, was honored, as were our martyred presidents, Lincoln, Garfield, and McKinley. His body lay in state in the rotunda of the Capitol while tens of thousands passed in procession to pay a last tribute of respect and gratitude. Arlington National Cemetery and the amphitheater, where the unknown soldier is buried. The tomb is on the marble terrace in front, at the right of the amphitheater. Behind the amphitheater to the left rises the main memorial. This photograph was made on April 6, 1922, during the unveiling of the National Geographic Society's memorial, indicated by an arrow, to Rear Admiral Robert E. Peary on the 13th anniversary of the discovery of the North Pole. His likeness stands where he lay in state. Having been presented by an individual, not by a state, this impressive head of Lincoln by Goodson Borglum appropriately rests in the rotunda under the dome upon which he would not allow work to cease for a single day during the darkest hours of the Civil War. The Rogers bronze doors of the rotunda. These doors were formerly hung at an entrance to Statuary Hall, but the crowds which paused to admire their exquisite workmanship obstructed the corridor. The 8 panels depict scenes from the life of Columbus. One of them shows the explorer in chains, which he continued to wear after boarding the vessel that was taking him back to Spain as a memento of the gratitude of princes. A vandal has stolen the chains, and the extended hand is worn by many visitors who observe a ritual of shaking hands with Columbus. A group of proud pilgrims on the steps of the Capitol. Tens of thousands of Americans take a short course in patriotism and government annually by taking a pilgrimage to Washington. But none of them get more of happiness and inspiration out of it than the members of the Boys and Girls Clubs of the rural high schools. The boys and girls in this picture hail from the parishes of Louisiana and won a national poultry judging contest. They are seeing Washington under the guidance of one of their senators and the Secretary of Agriculture. The Capitol in winter. 3 stages in the Capitol's building, representing 3 epochs in American history, are discernible in this picture. The Statue of Freedom, which crowns the dome, was put in place during the Civil War. The narrow part here shown was burned during the War of 1812, and afterward restored. The cornerstone of the house wing, to the right, was laid in 1851, with Daniel Webster as the orator. An Easter Monday egg-rolling throng in the White House grounds. Indians who have come to meet the Great White Father. Washington was once the site of an Indian village. A line of these villages existed along Eastern Branch as far up as Bladensburg, and there were others between the Capitol site and the river, and in the neighborhood of the 16th Street Bridge spanning Piney Branch. Marshal Foch, accompanied by Ambassador Jusserand, leaving the State, War, and Navy building after paying his respects to the Secretary of State. "Where are you going?" said one famous interviewer to another just after the war ban on travel lifted. "I'm to sail for a trip around the world. And you?" "I am going down to Washington to watch the world go by." An ambassador at the White House to present his credentials. Diplomatic intercourse is always marked by the most punctilious observation of precedence, and when an ambassador presents his credentials, he is accompanied by his staff in full uniform. The picture shows the new Japanese ambassador, Masanao Hanihara, on his ceremonial visit to the president, as a representative of the emperor. He is to be introduced by an assistant secretary of state, at the right. The president greets high school girls from Westborough, Massachusetts. The Prince of Wales is met at Union Station by Thomas R. Marshall, then Vice President of the United States. The distinguished visitor has just stepped from a private suite built at the east end of the station for the president and his guests. In this room, Marshal Joffre, Earl Balfour, and members of other overseas missions were welcomed officially when they arrived in the capital. King Albert of Belgium receiving an honorary degree from George Washington University. The president inaugurates the baseball season. Charles E. Hughes, Secretary of State, receives a delegation of Boy Scouts. Making a motion picture record of a visit of the wives of Philippine commissioners to the First Lady of the land. Everything that happens at the White House is of interest to the country at large, and there is rarely a newsreel shown in the thousands of theaters throughout the United States that some scene in Washington is not included.